Hi, my name is Jim Park, and I'm here to talk about global warming. And more specifically, I want to talk about how global warming is negatively affecting our world today. Now, before we go into any further, I want to clarify what global warming is and how it came about. What it is global warming is a gradual heating of the Earth's surface, oceans, and atmosphere. And how it is caused is met by human activity, primarily by the burning of fossil fuels that pump carbon dioxide, methane, and other harmful greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And that leads me to my first claim, saying that temperatures around the world have been changing due to global warming. Average temperatures around the world have been gradually increasing over the past years. This is one of the most immediate and obvious effects of global warming. A study by Alina Bradford and Stephanie Papaz shows that the average global temperature has increased by 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit over the past years. And now 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is a big deal because it shows the consistency of how gradual the increase in temperature is. Another study shows that since 1895, the hottest year on record was 2016, which was only last year. And this puts it into perspective. Another study showed that 16 of the 17 warmest weathers on record have happened since 2001. And this is a study according to NASA. And so it just shows how global warming has affected not only the years, decades ago, but even last year, 2 years ago, and 3 years ago. And to put into further perspective, another study by NASA shows that 2017 was the second hottest year on record. The first 6 months of 2017 alone was the second hottest 6 months on record, and last month, August of 2017, was the second hottest August on record. So it just shows and puts into perspective of how the weather has changed over the years and how it is affecting us today. And so this brings me to my second point, which talks about extreme weather events. Extreme weather events all around the world have been affected by global warming. So the products of climate change are heat waves, droughts, floods, and tornadoes. And as the world has gradually warmed up, the warming has triggered many of these weather events. A modern day example is the hurricanes. We all know the stories of recent hurricanes, how Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Harvey, and all these other hurricanes came about. And it's not to say that hurricanes are necessarily being produced by global warming, but global warming is definitely contributing to making them stronger. Since the ocean and atmosphere is on average warmer than what they used to be, the warmer climate actually propels the hurricanes and quote-unquote supercharges them. To talk about a recent hurricane, Hurricane Irma was already predicted to be a strong hurricane, but because the weather has been and the climate has been so much warmer, Hurricane Irma was that much stronger just because of global warming. And this shows how global warming is affecting the world today through natural disasters and how it is propelling these natural disasters and almost encouraging them to happen. And this brings me to my final point. The ocean has been a susceptible victim of global warming. And before we go into oceans, I want to talk about the ice. We all grew up learning in school how ice is rapidly being melted, and every year it's only getting faster and faster. Arctic ice is rapidly melting away, and a study by Damien Carrington shows that the 2017 minimum of ice was 610,000 square miles below the average of 1981 through 2010. And that's the 8th lowest year in the 38th satellite year. And so this ultimately affects the climate. As the ice melts, the ocean and overall climate will become warmer. And as the ocean gets warmer, the ice will melt faster. And we can kind of see how it correlates together. And so how does this affect our ocean? Well, there's a deadly gas called methane. And the Arctic Ocean is actually surrounded by a bunch of seabeds. And these seabeds are filled with methane, but haven't been, they haven't secreted themselves into the ocean because of these huge ice glaciers that are on top. But as the ocean gets warmer and as the ice melts, the seabeds will eventually get out, and once the methane gets into our ocean will become that much more acidic, and it's just bad news for the ocean. And so another con of global warming and how it has to deal with our ocean is that sea levels rise as ice melts, obviously. Sea level rise per year is constantly being accelerated. In 2014, the World Meteorological Organization reported that the sea level accelerated 0.12 inches per year on average worldwide. And like I said, even though the number isn't as drastic or it doesn't seem significant, because there's a change, it just shows the consistency of global warming and how it is affecting our ocean today. And so because of all these reasons, I want to conclude by saying that global warming has many negative effects to the world and is detrimental to our planet. Obviously, humans are responsible for this and we can make a change. And I hope that you can side with me and agree with me that global warming is harming the world today. Thank you.
All right, June, you identify the topic at the beginning, that's fine. The problem that I have with the way you've got your proposition set up is it makes it sound like it's an informative speech. You're going to tell us how it is negatively affecting the planet. You're not making a declarative statement, you're going to give us an explanation. And it needs to be argumentative in nature, so that's a little bit of a problem at the beginning. You do kind of explain what global warming is and how it came about, but there's no evidence linking it to the fossil fuels in that first section. I think that's a little problematic. You need some data on that particular point because you're in essence suggesting that it is primarily fueled by human activity. There's not really a pardon me. There's not really a preview of what the supporting structure is going to be, and I see that as being a little bit problematic in the presentation. Even though you've defined what the subject is, you haven't told us where you're headed with it. However, you do signpost those points pretty clearly in the body of the speech, and for the most part, they are phrased as claims there. So you talk about how temperature changes due to global warming. You do make a reference to extreme weather. I think that's the second point. That's one not as clearly labeled as a claim, but the third point was more clearly labeled as a claim. So I know what the individual points are that we're listening to at each point, but the claims need to be clearer on the second one. The first and the third one were satisfactory. The supporting information, I thought you started off pretty well, citing a study, giving us some statistical information. Then we had some data from NASA about the various years of temperatures that we were faced with, and I thought that was pretty effective. After that, though, it gets a little bit blurry. You make references to the hurricanes and the link to the temperature of the ocean accelerating the impact of the hurricanes. I got no source citation on that. I have no idea why you believe that that is true, so I think that's a little bit problematic. There is a source citation about the amount of ice that has to be going on, and there's some factual data about how the way it's being measured apparently is the 8th lowest in 38 years. I'm going, well, that, it doesn't sound great, but I'm not exactly sure that that's a convincing piece of information. And then there's some further statistical information that you present about the ocean level, the 0.12 inches. I think that's good information that's cited in the presentation, although you do need to kind of explain why that's important in the long run. You just suggest that it basically demonstrates some consistency. All the methane stuff is, I'm sure you got it from someplace, but there's no source provided there. The link to acidity is all asserted, and I think that's a little bit problematic, so you need to be more consistent about citing your information on those particular points. I thought you did a nice job speaking to the audience. Generally, you had solid contact. You sound like you know what you're talking about. And I just think that you need to be more consistent in the citation of the information. And there's a good summary at the end of the speech, so that works well at building some credibility also. All right, thank you.